All right, well, first and foremost, I would say it's always good to see you because I am always excited when you bring something here to Vegas, whether it's just you working on some of the properties here or possibly a festival, or more importantly, just kind of coming up with something creative and new, which is something that I am very excited about when it comes to Emerge. You know, being the founder of something like this has to be something that came kind of from internally, because it's something you've seen not only in the festival mode, but something maybe in the music world and something along those lines, as well as you kind of have a little more in-depth message, I think, too, when you try to attempt something. So can you tell me a little bit more about where Emerge came from for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Emerge is, like all the projects I do, is very much a passion project, but it's a culmination of both the work I've done in entertainment over the last 20 years, but then also the life that I've been living in today's very kind of controversial and divisive world. So what we wanted to do with Emerge was create a forum in which communities could come together and share everything that's going on in their world from incredibly diverse perspectives, and share their opinions on how to make the world a better place through the lens of this beautiful collaboration between thought leadership and live music. Those two relationships have gone hand in hand since the era of Woodstock, or during Live Aid or the Tibetan Freedom Festival. So in moments throughout history, music and social change and social justice and activism have always gone together. So what we want to do is create something that really just brought the two together in a really easy to digest and fun environment in Las Vegas.
Now, Emerge itself, you know, is an interesting way to take on, because it's the immersion of the ideas and you kind of giving yourself over to something new and awesome, but also it's also living within that moment too. So what was it about the word emerge that they just sung to what this was soon to become?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very literal interpretation. So it's the celebration of emerging perspectives and also emerging talent. So a lot of the names on the lineup you're not going to recognize right away, but you absolutely will in the next 18 to 24 months. And then some of the more established names like Brandon Flowers or Laura Jane Grace or Talib Kweli are names you've heard of and you're incredibly familiar with, but what they're going to bring to their stage performances is going to be something that's really new and really interesting, because they're digging really deep and bringing in the stories that matter to them the most of how they feel like the world needs to change and evolve as we move forward together.
Now let's talk about this lineup as well, because that's something that I'm very, interested with. Because when it comes to new music, it's always something where, no matter what, you're taking opinions. Whether it's the person who puts the festival on, or it's what's hot at the time too. But it doesn't always necessarily mean it's something that's good for you. But over time, I found that your opinion has been very, very well, because I remember, seeing some stuff at Life is Beautiful that kind of, blew my mind too. I wasn't expecting it, and those are definitely names that are steadfast now too. I mean, everything from Janelle Monáe to Childish to a bunch of different people like that kind of just changed who I was. TV on the radio. There's so many things that I knew a little of, but I discovered more and I experienced it. So tell me, what is it about the artists, or what were you looking for when it came to these artists on this docket?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is over the last almost 10 years that I've been able to produce events in Vegas, we have very much had a focus on introducing new music, new names into a market that at the time when I moved here back in 2010, there weren't a lot of touring bands coming through the market at that moment. So there wasn't a chance as a local to be able to see new kind of interesting music. So at the Cosmopolitan back in the day, it was really those about to break bands that didn't have a place to come through that we were able to house and treat really well, but also be a part of their rise. At Life is Beautiful, it was a hugely diverse kind of cultural immersive experience that had both emerging street artists, but then also emerging musicians of all different genres. For Emerge specifically, we're looking to identify musicians that really represent minority perspectives in a lot of really interesting ways. And some of them are truly emerging. So like the band The Dose that's playing on Saturday night at the Depressed Monsters Showcase, or Hobo Johnson, who's playing that night as well, are relatively new artists and are just now getting their name out there. But then there's artists like Big Freedia that's been a staple in New Orleans and sells out Brooklyn Bowl in New York multiple dates, but just hasn't come through Vegas. It is very much a new artist for this city. But I think what you're going to find is, regardless of your musical taste, there's going to be something for you. But the connective tissue is the passion that each artist brings behind their performance is something that you're going to enjoy regardless of what type of genre of music you're into.
And I could say personally, I'm very happy to see Talib back here because I actually saw him with Common in their original joint here at the Hard Rock Hotel years and years and years ago, back in 2000 something. So it was way back in the day. So to see him back here again is kind of emotional for me as well because he is someone with a message as well. And let's talk about the message too, because you have music, but you have thought-provoking people too. You know, what was it that kind of set those people aside for you that you wanted to invite them out here?
Yeah, so every person on our lineup has got a unique perspective on some sort of relevant social issue or topic. So we've got artists that focus on mental health, addiction, depression, transgender, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, prison reform, cannabis reform, police brutality, so on and so forth. So in some cases, we wanted to literally bring the faces and the minds behind these movements to the stage. So Patrisse Cullors, who's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, or Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg, who are the Parkland shooting survivors and the faces for March for Our Lives. They're the literal heads of these organizations and these massive nationwide movements that are trying to push for minority rights and change. But then on the other side, we brought artists like Talib Kweli as an example, who, in addition to being an iconic stage performer and musician, is also an advocate for prison reform, specifically in the cannabis space. And same days that he's performing, we've got Weldon Angelos, who was arrested for carrying a pound of cannabis and was sentenced to 55 years in prison before President Obama vacated his sentence. So he gets to get on stage and talk about what it was like facing a life sentence for a crime that isn't a crime anymore. So the important thing for us was raise the issues that definitely matter at a community level here in Vegas, but do it through the lens and perspectives of talent that you know in a lot of cases and can be really excited and kind of inspired by.
Now, for you personally, what was it like? Was there some speaker, was there some musician that spoke to you? Because experiencing it is how minds get changed. There's a lot of news out there that people don't believe anymore. There's so many videos, there's YouTubes, there's all these things that they're essentially out there that are telling you what to think, and you don't know who to trust. But once you see it live and experience it for yourself, it kind of changes you and helps you become who you are. Do you have anything in your own past you feel like, I saw this and this is one of those things that changed me?
Yeah, I mean, the music that I grew up listening to is very much tied to social change in its own way. So listening to Bob Dylan, I'm not during the 60s anti-Vietnam War movement, but definitely after, and hearing how his voice, his tone, his style led to creating a movement of people who were actively protesting the war. The Beastie Boys and their role in the Tibetan Freedom Festival and their role in advocating for change. I mean, Laura Jane Grace and her transitioning as transgender from, and still the lead singer of Against Me, and now advocating for transgender rights. I think some of the most passionate moments in music history were moments when musicians were very much dialed into what's happening in the world. And I think what scared me was back in the 90s when the term "shut up and sing" came out associated with the Dixie Chicks. Right. And now in hindsight, that was a phenomenally terrible perspective for us to as a masses to force onto them, because music is supposed to be the platform that guides us in the right direction.
Right. We want poets, but if we can't stomach them, what's the use in it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think now more than ever, it's important that people who are looking for a safe place can find it in the live entertainment community and in the world of live music.
Now, when it comes to festivals too, what is it about festivals you see now that maybe they're still doing right, but maybe have we lost our way a little bit? You know, it's like Woodstock is coming back, but the last Woodstock I remember in the 90s was so corporate that everyone kind of had a bad taste in their mouth at the same time too. Yeah. We're trying to do it again, but you know, have we lost our message in some of those things? Has it turned into a way to sell more tickets and sell more people, as opposed to something that's more human and base, which is just a gathering and a conversation?
Yeah, you know, so the last 15 years of live entertainment was shaped by the festival generation. So people who are in their teens that are now in their late 20s and mid 30s who went to multiple music festivals a year and shaped young culture based on those kind of collaborative environments, immersive collaborative environments that only existed when 90,000 people got together in front of a stage in the middle of a park like Chicago or downtown Las Vegas or San Francisco. So I think that festivals have always been and continue to be an incredibly important contributor to cultural development. I think the challenge is when you're trying to draw 90,000 people into an event, it's hard to raise issues that could be divisive,
Right.
Because that goes against the community culture that you're trying to build for that. So there are limitations. But when you're doing an event in a venue like the Joint that holds 3,500 people, you can get pretty liberal and aggressive in advocating for certain perspectives or bringing certain communities together. And I think after my time with Life is Beautiful and the Cosmopolitan before that, I wanted to become a little more narrow and focused and be able to work with a smaller community and really just build interesting perspectives together. So you're going to see over the weekend a really interesting way of presenting live music in a way that Vegas has never seen before. And it doesn't exist anywhere where Emma Gonzalez can talk about being a survivor of a high school shooting right before Brandon Flowers performs Land of the Free with a 12-person choir celebrating social change from the perspective of the killers. It's just going to be a beautiful weekend.
Now, so one of the things I want to talk about as well is, you come out to Las Vegas too. You've done other events in other cities, whether it's food or music or different things too. What is it about Las Vegas you think that it is, I guess, progressive in some senses, but it's also a melting pot of ideas as well as influx of just every kind of people possible?
Yeah, so when you look at the city through the lens of the social issues that we're raising awareness for, Vegas is probably the greatest petri dish of all of those issues that are taking place at one time. It's a battleground state through and through, so there isn't an election cycle without the most aggressive and loudest presidential candidates or political candidates coming here and trying to advocate for the support of our local community. So that's number one and a huge thing that can't be overlooked. But then we have real issues. So we're 50 out of 50 in education in any given year, or 48, 49, or 50. We've got an impoverished transgender community. We've got a larger LGBTQ community that still struggles. We've got rampant homelessness, we've got drug addiction, we've got mental health and illness, and that exists in other cities as well. It exists in San Francisco, it exists in New York and in LA. You can't avoid that. But I think being able to produce an event in a city that is this passionate for its own positive development and being able to leverage that positivity and that momentum to be able to create a really kind of passionate and interesting event has always been exciting to me. And the city welcomes you with open arms. Nowhere else in the world can you come in and just with some I guess a high risk tolerance and a lot of passion can you create what we've been able to create over the last several years. So I think that's something that we're never going to be able to let go of, is just our love for the city.
So one of the things that I always say, especially when I've helped with events in my past too, is you need to have the first one to have the second one. Is that something that you're looking at this event, but you're looking at the first step?
Yeah, so we piloted the event last year, and it was our first time kind of testing this model. We honed the concept and kind of revamped it for this year. So we feel like, these are our first steps into trying to understand what this event's going to be. As an event producer, we can only create so much of the product. Ultimately, the people who attend are really going to shape it. So I'm excited for tomorrow morning to see everyone show up and see how they embrace the event. But to be in this business, you've got to be in it for the long haul. You hear about Paul Tollett, the founder of Coachella, refinancing his home 3 times after losses that they took in the early years, or C3 Presents, who rebooted Lollapalooza in Chicago, almost going bankrupt in those early years. These are hard projects to get off the ground, but once they get going, they're beautiful things because they can become a lasting part of people's cultural journey.
Yeah. Much like music or movies or different things, they are those points in their life that they point back to. They associate it with that time too, and hopefully they associate it with a change of perspective, I think, is what we're looking for as well. And with this new world of since the first Life is Beautiful, phones have become insanely more broadcasting live, sending out messages live. What is your thought on how people, I guess, ingest this and then how they get it out to the rest of the world from their opinion and standpoint? I mean, is there a way you guys are trying to educate people in that way to let them be that speaker?
Yeah, I think people are going to consume content information the way they're going to consume it. So the thing that matters to me most is whether you're looking at it through the screen of your phone as you're filming, or you're just looking at it with your own kind of bare eyes. For me, at the end of the day, it's are you walking away with the deep understanding of what was being presented, what the intent of what was being presented was, and more importantly, what your role in helping can be, or what your opinion on it can be. Because ultimately, if you're walking away with that level of insight, then all of a sudden you can become an incredible advocate and champion for all the conversations that are happening. And so that's number one. I think number two is, if anything, I'd rather people be talking to each other during the program, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is build a community of people who can then leave here and share the experiences that they've had here in an ongoing basis, and not have it just live as 2 days once a year.
Right.
So.
Well, I guess the last thing I have to say is just, what is the best way for people to get involved with this? First it's the website, then it's the ticket, then it's, planning on coming out. This is going to post ASAP, so we want, I guess, just, what's the best way for them to be part of Emerge?
Yeah, absolutely. So tickets are still on sale. We have a limited number left, so the tickets are on sale at emergelv.com. And come to the event. We kick off at 11 a.m. tomorrow with some really incredible conversations with nonprofit leaders, and Weldon Angelos, who I mentioned, and Gerard Way and Rob Cavallo are going to be talking about recording My Chemical Romance's most iconic album. So I get here right away and start the day off and just plow through the next 2 days. But it's really just coming in with an open mind and a desire to learn and kind of be exposed to new thinking. And I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I feel like this is the place to do it. I feel like this is definitely the time as well. So we look forward to your message as well as your music, and we can't wait for this to be filled with people with open minds.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Cool, man.